I did a little bit of a look back. I gave a little bit of the history of sort of cyber security, but starting from communication security, which is kind of where GCHQ came from. Bletchley Park days, long history in that kind of space. I talked about communication security, how it then became computer security in the sort of mid-80s, how we went into then information security, because it wasn't just about computers, it was about information more broadly, how government then began to use more the term information assurance, because we not only wanted some security, but we wanted some assurance that the security was working. So we put some emphasis on assurance. And now we've got this new term, which is cybersecurity. Because I would argue that we've actually been doing cybersecurity for a long, long time. I've probably been doing it for at least 15 years within government, in how we built the government secure intranet, how we built monitoring systems around that intranet to be able to protect ourselves. So I talked a little bit about what my view of cybersecurity was, and then went on to talk about the 10th step for cybersecurity. So we had the launch back in September. We had the 5 ministers launching to all the chairs of the FTSE companies. That was really about the fact that Director GCHQ has, a lot of companies come to us and say, you understand this cybersecurity business. How are we going to manage our risk in this? So the response to that was we did a cross-government piece of work to develop the 10 steps. That was launched in September. And I think I used that in my talk to illustrate that the 10 steps are quite complicated steps in some ways. Well, you need the skills to be able to implement them, the right skills to implement them. And then the challenge that we have is how do we build the capacity, how do we build those skills to be able to implement those sort of basic 10 steps. We have a cross-government strategy now. So the National Cybersecurity Strategy has got 4 objectives. The 4th objective is all about how do you build that cross-cutting knowledge, how do you build that skill. So what we do is very anchored in the existing strategies. I talked about how we've developed a sort of a plan between ourselves, BIS, Cabinet Office, EPSRC, the Research Councils, how we're joining up to kind of look at the whole supply chain of skills, starting at schools, apprenticeships, undergraduates, PhDs, but also how do people move into this field from an existing field. So how do you, retrain your workforce or get people with the right skills in mid-career? So I talked a little bit about that. I talked about the work we're doing to certify professionals, create a profession within government and people involved in information security in government. I talked a little bit about how important other professions are to this, and I illustrated that with the procurement profession. It's really important that we buy the right kinds of things. And I gave some examples of some of the problems that we see in how contracts are written, for example, where sometimes you put a specific number of patches. You might define a specific number of patches in a contract. After 2 or 3 months, those patches have been done. What do you do after that, kind of thing? So there's a lot they can add. And then finally, I focused really, and this was the focus of my talk, is how can academia help us to build that capacity? And I talked around a number of initiatives. So we've been identifying centres of excellence in cybersecurity and academic research. We have 8 centres. We're soon to be announcing a number more. Where we have some gaps in our excellence, we have created research institutes. We have 2 of those. The first one was on the science of cybersecurity. That's a joint investment by ourselves and EPSRC of about 4 million. Second one is soon to be announced, and that's going to look at software verification. Again, that's another investment of around 4 million. On top of that, we are funding up to about 30 PhDs across the centres of excellence in a variety of topics. And finally, we are working very closely with BIS, who are about to launch some doctoral training colleges for PhD students, looking at about 50. So you can actually see a time, in terms of PhDs at least, say 3 years down the line, where you could have maybe 100 PhDs developing our knowledge base in the cybersecurity area. People that we can then use within UK industry, UK government, and it all comes into how do we make the UK a safe and secure place in cyberspace.